How New Jack lost all respect in just one shocking night is a story wrestling fans will never forget. That one wild incident at an ECW show will always be remembered for the chaos it caused and the way it destroyed New Jack's reputation. So let's dive in and break down exactly what happened on that unforgettable night. During an ECW show, New Jack found himself in a tag team match that would go down as one of the most infamous moments in wrestling history. His opponent that night was a 17-year-old aspiring wrestler named Eric Koulas, who stepped into the ring using the name Mass Transit. On the surface, it seemed like just another wild ECW matchup, but there was a dangerous truth hidden behind the scenes. Koulas wasn't actually old enough to be there, and he had lied about both his age and his wrestling experience just to get booked for the show. He claimed to be 21 and said he'd been trained, hoping to live out his dream of performing in front of a real crowd. Because of those lies, nobody realized just how unprepared Koulas really was. The match included a planned spot where New Jack would help Koulas blade, a wrestling term for making a small cut on the forehead to create the dramatic effect of bleeding. Normally, this is done carefully and in a controlled way, but things went horribly wrong. Instead of a small cut, New Jack sliced too deep, accidentally severing two arteries in Koulas's forehead. Blood poured everywhere almost instantly, shocking the fans and everyone in the locker room. The scene quickly turned into chaos. Medical staff rushed to the ring as Koulas bled heavily and had to be rushed to the hospital. Thankfully, he survived, but the damage had already been done. The incident led to a massive backlash against both New Jack and ECW. A lawsuit soon followed, putting the promotion and New Jack under intense legal and public scrutiny. Although New Jack was eventually acquitted of criminal charges in court, the situation left a permanent scar on his career. Wrestling fans and insiders never forgot what happened that night. What was supposed to be a scripted, edgy ECW match turned into a real-life nightmare. The Mass Transit incident, as it came to be known, became one of the most talked about controversies in wrestling history. For many, it defined New Jack's reputation, turning him from a hardcore daredevil into one of the most feared and polarizing figures the business had ever seen. Now let's shift gears and take a look at what New Jack's career had to offer beyond this infamous controversy. His path began in the early 1990s when he trained under veteran wrestler Ray Candy. After learning the ropes, he made his official debut in 1992 with the United States Wrestling Association, a well-known promotion based in Memphis, Tennessee. It was here that Jerome Young took on the name that would define his entire career, New Jack. The name wasn't just a random choice. He borrowed it from the 1991 crime film New Jack City, which fit perfectly with the edgy, dangerous persona he wanted to bring to the ring. From the start, New Jack carried himself like someone who belonged in the middle of the chaos, and fans could feel that raw energy every time he stepped into the arena. It didn't take long for New Jack to start making a name for himself. In June 1993, only a year into his career, he won his first championship. For a newcomer, this was a huge accomplishment and a sign that promoters and fans were starting to take notice of his talent. Even though it was a short run, the victory proved that New Jack had the drive and charisma to stand out in a crowded wrestling scene. He stayed with the USWA until the end of that summer, using the time to sharpen his in-ring skills and build his reputation as someone who could bring excitement to any card. After leaving Memphis, New Jack moved to Atlanta, where he continued to chase opportunities in smaller promotions. He wrestled for the North Georgia Wrestling Alliance and quickly made an impact by winning their heavyweight championship. These early years were crucial for him because they allowed him to experiment with his character, blending street-tough attitude with the hardcore wrestling style that would later define his career. It was during this time that New Jack started to realize that his greatest strength wasn't just his athletic ability, it was the way he connected with the crowd, whether they loved him or hated him. In early 1994, New Jack's career took another big turn when he teamed up with Mustafa Said, a former WCW wrestler. Together, they formed the Gangsters, a team that would go on to become one of the most notorious and influential duos in wrestling history. From the start, the Gangsters brought a different kind of energy to the ring. Their gimmick was loud, controversial, and unapologetically rooted in street culture, something that immediately set them apart from other teams of the era. The two men clicked as a unit, and their chemistry helped them win the NGWA Tag Team Championship in July 1994. However, their time in North Georgia was short-lived. They quickly vacated the titles and left the territory, hungry for bigger challenges and bigger crowds. Their next stop was Smoky Mountain Wrestling, a promotion run by Jim Cornette. It was here that New Jack truly began to earn his reputation. The Gangsters became one of the most talked about acts in the company, regularly squaring off against the beloved Southern tag team, the Rock and Roll Express. The contrast between the clean-cut, fan-favorite Rock and Roll Express and the gritty, in-your-face Gangsters made for some unforgettable matches. New Jack thrived in this environment, using his microphone skills to stir up the crowd and his violent, brawling style to keep fans on the edge of their seats. Smoky Mountain was where New Jack's character really came to life, and it gave him the platform he needed to take the next big step in his career. That step came in June 1995, when the Gangsters signed with Extreme Championship Wrestling in Philadelphia. ECW was the perfect home for a team like the Gangsters, known for its hardcore matches, wild storylines, and anything-goes atmosphere. The promotion embraced the chaos that New Jack loved to create. The team made their debut at an event called Barbed Wire, Hoodies and Chokeslams, immediately making an impact by attacking the Public Enemy, one of ECW's top tag teams. A few weeks later, they had their first official in-ring match at Hardcore Heaven, where they faced the Public Enemy in a losing effort. The loss didn't slow them down. Instead, it kicked off a heated rivalry that stretched throughout the year, with both teams trading wins and trying to outdo each other in violent, high-stakes matches. Their feud with the Public Enemy finally came to an end at an event called House Party, where the Public Enemy scored the final win before leaving the company. But for the Gangsters, this was just the beginning. They quickly moved into a rivalry with the Eliminators, John Cronus and Perry Saturn, who were the reigning ECW World Tag Team Champions. Despite several title shots, the Gangsters couldn't quite capture the belts, but their battles with the Eliminators only added to their reputation as one of the toughest teams in ECW. Along the way, they also found themselves dealing with another team, the Samoan Gangsta Party, who debuted by attacking the Gangsters and costing them a crucial match against the Eliminators. This led to a series of wild brawls that spilled out of the ring and into the crowd, creating the kind of chaos that ECW fans loved. The three-way rivalry eventually grew to include the Bruise Brothers, setting the stage for a massive four-way dance at the Doctor's Inn event. On that night, the Gangsters finally reached the top by winning the match and capturing their first ECW World Tag Team Championship. As champions, the Gangsters defended their titles against some of the toughest teams in the company, including the Eliminators, the Samoan Gangsta Party, and even the legendary duo of Rob Van Dam and Sabu. Their reign lasted 139 days, a solid accomplishment in a company where titles often changed hands quickly. But even with the belts around their waists, the Gangsters' story was far from over. In November 1996, New Jack's career took a dark turn during the infamous mass transit incident, a moment that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Scheduled to team with Mustafa against Devon Dudley and Axl Rotten, New Jack ended up facing an untrained 17-year-old wrestler named Eric Koulas, who had lied about his age and training to get booked. During the match, Koulas asked New Jack to blade him, but the cut went too deep, causing massive bleeding and sending Koulas to the hospital. The fallout was immediate and severe, leading to a lawsuit and a storm of bad publicity. Although New Jack was eventually acquitted of criminal charges, the incident became a permanent black mark on his career and added to his already dangerous reputation. Despite the controversy, the Gangsters continued to compete. They eventually lost their titles back to the Eliminators in early 1997, but remained a key part of ECW's tag team scene. Their battles with teams like the Dudley Boys kept them in the spotlight, and at Heatwave 1997, the Gangsters scored another huge win by defeating the Dudleys inside a steel cage to capture their second ECW World Tag Team Championship. Unfortunately, this victory would also mark the beginning of the end for the team. Shortly after winning the titles, Mustafa Syed left the company, forcing the Gangsters to forfeit the belts and effectively ending one of the most notorious tag teams in wrestling history. On August 21st, 1997, New Jack teamed up with former Eliminator John Kronus to form a brand new tag team called the Gangsters. The name perfectly blended the legacy of New Jack's old team, the Gangsters, with Kronus's former team, the Eliminators. They made an immediate impact by defeating the Dudley Boys the very night they came together. Fans could already feel that this pairing was going to bring the same kind of chaos New Jack was famous for. The Gangsters officially made their television debut on the September 20th episode of Hardcore TV. That night, Kronus earned a title shot at the ECW World Tag Team Championship by defeating the Dudleys. And in a surprise twist, New Jack showed up as his partner. The two got their big opportunity at as good as it gets, and they didn't waste it. The Gangsters defeated the Dudley Boys to win the ECW World Tag Team Championship, giving New Jack his third ECW Tag Team title reign. Their mix of Kronus's athletic moves and New Jack's raw, weapon-filled violence gave them a style that was both exciting and unpredictable. But in ECW, titles rarely stayed with anyone for long. On the November 1st episode of Hardcore TV, the Gangsters lost their belts to the full-blooded Italians, Little Guido and Tracy Smothers. Even after losing the championship, New Jack and Kronus stayed right in the middle of the action. They battled teams like the Hardcore Chair Swingin' Freaks and the Dudley Boys in wild multi-team matches. At the Fright Fight event, they scored a big win in a three-way dance. And at November to Remember, they fought in a four-way rematch for the titles against the FBI, the Freaks, and the Dudleys, though this time they came up short. Their biggest rivalry remained with the Dudley Boys. The bad blood between these teams led to another showdown at the 1998 house party, where the Dudleys managed to get the win. By this point, New Jack and Kronus were also working alongside Spike Dudley, the little brother who had split from the Dudley family. Not long after, New Jack also stepped into singles competition, facing off against big names like Bam Bam Bigelow at WrestlePalooza. His growing focus on singles matches eventually led to the Gangsters quietly dissolving. New Jack started teaming more often with Spike Dudley, and the two carried on the war with the Dudleys. Around this time, New Jack also began bringing a trademark garbage can full of weapons to the ring. Everything from guitars to staple guns to shopping carts. This wasn't just for show, it became a signature part of his violent style. The feud with the Dudleys raged on into 1999. At Guilty as Charged, New Jack and Spike lost to the Dudleys, but the rivalry only grew more personal. At Crossing the Line 99, New Jack shocked fans by bringing out his old Gangsters partner, Mustafa Saeed, as a surprise ally. But in true ECW fashion, there was a twist. Mustafa betrayed New Jack by smashing a guitar over his head and revealing that he had been secretly backing the Dudley Boys all along. This betrayal ignited a heated feud between the former partners. Their grudge came to a head at Living Dangerously, where New Jack got his revenge by defeating Mustafa in a violent, weapon-filled showdown. The war didn't end there, though. At CyberSlam, New Jack teamed up with the Hardcore Chair Swingin' Freaks in an Ultimate Jeopardy match against Mustafa and the Dudleys. Although New Jack's team lost, he made sure Mustafa paid a price by diving off a cage and smashing him through a table after the match. After that brutal encounter, New Jack disappeared from ECW for a while to recover. When he returned at Heatwave, he came back in typical New Jack fashion, charging to the ring and attacking the Dudley Boys with weapons he brought in a shopping cart. His willingness to risk his body for the sake of a fight kept him a fan favorite in the hardcore ECW crowd. New Jack's violent reputation soon earned him a shot at the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. On the October 22nd episode of ECW on TNN, he faced Mike Awesome for the title, but came up short. Just a few weeks later on the November 5th episode, New Jack rushed to the ring to save the Hardcore Chair Swingin' Freaks from an attack by the street gang Debaldis. Unfortunately, this rescue attempt turned into one of the most gruesome moments in ECW history. During the brawl, Angel from Debaldis used New Jack's own staple gun against him, stapling him in the eye. The match had to be stopped, and New Jack disappeared from TV for several months to recover from the horrifying injury. When he finally returned near the end of 1999, New Jack looked as dangerous as ever. He now wore a scythe around his neck, claiming he had upgraded from the staple gun. His feud with Angel continued with a series of bloody street fights. Their first big clash came at November to Remember, where New Jack and the Freaks lost to DeBaldi's in a handicap match. At the Guilty as Charged 2000 pay-per-view, New Jack faced Angel one-on-one but lost after interference from the rest of DeBaldi's. The violence only escalated in March 2000 during a live pay-per-view in Danbury, Connecticut. In a match against Vic Grimes, New Jack suffered one of the most terrifying injuries of his career. The two were supposed to take a dangerous 15-foot fall from a scaffold onto tables below. Seconds before the jump, Grimes hesitated, but with no time to change the plan, New Jack pulled him down anyway. They missed the tables and crashed onto the concrete floor. Grimes landed awkwardly on New Jack's head, causing severe injuries. New Jack suffered brain damage, a broken leg, a skull fracture, permanent insomnia, and blindness in his right eye. Amazingly, after 6 months of recovery, he returned to action and even defeated DeBaldi's leader Angel just 2 months later at Hardcore Heaven. New Jack's resilience was almost unreal. At Heatwave, he showed up on crutches, only to be attacked again by Angel, who used the staple gun to open up New Jack's forehead until other wrestlers came to his aid. Despite his injuries, New Jack refused to stay down. His final ECW match came on the December 17th episode of Hardcore TV, where he defeated his longtime rival, Angel. Unfortunately, ECW itself was nearing its end. By early 2001, the company declared bankruptcy and officially closed its doors in April. That's all for today's video, everyone. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. See you soon.